The other thing is, I did my,
The alternates? Can they both be alternates?
Okay.
Can they both be alternates? Oh, sure. There's
Oh,
like,
good.
we could have like an unlimited number of
Good,
alternates.
good.
I mean, it's really just up to the select board to decide what they want to do. Okay,
Okay.
we do have an agenda for today. I'm calling the meeting to order at 5 o'clock, and I have Deb, for the minutes, I've noted who's here, right? You have it, okay?
No,
Or
I don't know. I don't have it yet.
I'll let you know who's.
Okay,
We know who's on there, and then there's Will, me, Laura, Dan, and and a member of the public,
yes.
Larry. Yeah. So.
There's another one there, or if you want.
Larry, what is Larry's last name?
Yeah, last name is Dalzell, spelled Dalziel.
And we're very lucky because Larry is an architect,
Oh.
and has spent a lot of time on a zoning board and a planning commission.
The zoning board, I was,
So question, Larry, is your wife the one who did all the great coordination post-flood?
that's correct.
Ah, I worked with her a little bit.
I was in my muck boots mucking around in the basement.
I know.
There, and-
Me too.
I'll lift it over.
And Annie Fuji just arrived. Annie.
I guess
this
that is easier, huh? Oh,
Oh, careful.
Oh.
you got cocky there.
Nice to meet you.
He's hoping to become an alternate, so the
Oh,
select board
fantastic.
will vote on him. All right.
Uh-oh.
What I'm gonna do, since I'm gonna get started, and Will's doing some technical work here,
Okay.
okay? So, I'm calling the meeting to order now at 5:03. And the first order of business is approval of the minutes of the February 5th meeting, and Laura, motion approved. Annie's
I'll
gonna
second.
second it. And all in favor of approving the minutes of the 2/5/25 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and now we have Jeff Lennox has joined us from Colorado, which means that the skiing must be either over for the day or something.
No, I left to come back for this.
So
So,
special.
so Jeff, you can see who's on the Zoom from your side, and also, so over here, we have Will Goodwin, me, Laura Katz, Dan Hannenberg, and Annie Fuji, and we have a member of the public, Larry Dalzell, who is actually interested, just like Toby, in becoming a member of the DRB.
Okay.
And Larry's a retired architect, or
Well,
still, whatever.
yeah, practicing still, but
Oh, okay, he's practicing architect and
On
has served
occasion.
on a zoning board, so that'll be good.
Excellent.
And so we have approved the minutes of the February 5th meeting. I just wanted to make sure with New Thought Vermont, did they get their permit extension? So we're done with them?
Yep.
Okay, very good. All right, so now moving on to the zoning regulations. I just wanted to sort of set the stage for this. As you know, it's not our job to write zoning regulations. However, we have been sort of given a blessing to go through and look at zoning regulations, and in particular, I think we're focusing on a couple of things. One are things that are hard to interpret. You know, they have mixed meanings, and we sometimes run into like, well, what does that really mean? So fortunately, Will has been keeping track of that for quite a while, and so he's made a list of those. sort of conflict things. There's also things that are outdated in our zoning regulations that have been superseded by new state law. So that shows up in Will's quick fix memo. Thirdly, as I was going through today, I was getting ready for the meeting today, and some of the things that jumped out at me, which aren't on Will's list, but at some point I think it would be really maybe good for us, maybe not, maybe somebody takes the initiative and says, like, I'll go home and do some research on that, or maybe Will has some from other towns. But like, for example, our sign permit section is practically longer than
Yeah,
I mean, it's really long and it's really sort of confusing. And I'm really wondering if it can be looked at a little bit more in terms of what are we really trying to regulate and how should we best regulate it. Another example is things, there are things in there like, well, I'm going to get to them when I go here, but signs I knew is one. Oh, parking. Oh, go ahead, Susan.
I just wanted to ask a question, and this is for Larry's benefit. Is he aware of sort of where we are? Like the town plan is with the select board, and then they're moving to rewrite the zoning regs, like where the continuum is at this point?
Well,
Very-
mentioned it to me the other day at the town meeting.
But very good. It's worthwhile sort of repeating that. Under Vermont law, towns have to redo their town plan every 8 years. Our town plan was expired in October or something, but there's like a 6-month or something extension. The Planning Commission is the entity that's responsible for writing the town plan. The Planning Commission did so. They held their required public hearings. The select board took it, got it, and they have made a substantial number of changes. They're very minor changes, but there's a substantial number of changes, and Will kindly sent that out to us.
And there's an extra copy.
And there's a copy here, okay? So the next step is that the select board really theoretically is supposed to get this done by whatever date that is, maybe April or something, I don't know. But the select board, and the select board also has to have a public hearing, at least one or two.
Well, I think there's gonna have to be another
Extension,
PC hearing first.
okay.
Because there were major changes made, it has to go back to the planning
Okay.
commission.
So there's a
then
little bit of
go.
process going on here. And it might go back, as Will was just saying, it might go from the select board to the planning commission to the select board, and blah, 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 blah. And ultimately, the select board adopts the new town plan, but that's the reason there's public input from the community, okay? And so our zoning regulations are pretty much very outdated. And as I spoke about early, there's some that are just totally crazy for us to even be having in our zoning regulations. And there's some that have been changed by state law that haven't been updated to do that. It's my understanding that not my understanding, the Planning Commission has the responsibility for drafting zoning regulations. That said, interested citizens, and so we're kind of interested citizens, can present proposals to the Planning Commission. So that's basically what we're kind of doing right now is going through, and we're going to get proposals to the Planning Commission. And I let Lexi know. Lexi chairs the Planning Commission. I let Lexi know what we are doing, and he sent an invitation to his Planning Commission to come tonight if they wanted to. And actually, Tom Ettinger was going to come, but he ended up with car trouble, so did not come. So we're trying to do this as in a transparent and communicative and collaborative way. The Planning Commission wants to hire a consultant to do the bulk of the rewriting of the zoning regulations, but they're not gonna be able to even apply for a grant for a couple of months, something like that.
Yeah.
So how the planning commission will deal with what we do, I don't know. We'll just have to.
I think they'll wait until they get a consultant.
In Londonderry, it's been over 5 years since they started rewriting the bylaw.
Okay, then.
So I would think
Too long.
I would think a short-term fix would be better.
Yeah, I mean, if we
I
can
mean,
make,
if you're making them all with the suggestions here, I mean. why
Right.
can't we just-
But I think they're not, I mean, I don't know, I have a feeling they're waiting till they get that consultant.
Well, I can understand
They don't wanna do
before
anything
before they do a whole real right. I
Yeah.
can see they're wanting a grant and a consultant, but I think it'd be good to have some quick fixes. for
I
it.
agree, quick fixes
Yeah,
would
I
be
agree.
helpful and,
Especially some of the basics, I agree.
right, so,
Do you know
so,
if they'd be hiring like, again, like the Wyndham Regional Consultant?
they like that
or-
guy, Matt.
I think that's who
Right,
they're thinking
because
of hiring.
Londonderry, part of their problem is they hired an independent, private, mucky-muck consultant that was not.
The same one
really-
whose bylaws wouldn't pass in Chester.
Right,
We went to the planning commission meeting, didn't they say they wanted to hire the same Matt? And that was a while ago, I thought that was going, I guess it hasn't.
Well,
happened
I
yet.
think you can't apply for, it has to do with the grant cycle.
Okay.
So you can't. if
And
you
there's
just-
no guarantee they'll get a grant.
Right, I mean, there are a lot of ifs, but we still, I think we need to move forward.
Yeah.
and just
So,
see what we-
Susan, did I cover enough?
Yeah, no, this is good. That was good for me.
Okay, all right.
Because I kind of lost track of where everything was.
So, all right, so I was saying the couple of reasons for doing this. One is some quick fixes of things that have been problematic for us. Two is things that are really needed to be changed because of state law. Three is things that, when I went through, I started, the third thing, what I would really like to do, and this is what one of my focuses is, in addition to those two, is to make this more, if you will, user-friendly. And that it's easier for someone to pick up the zoning regulations and sort of understand what they're doing and make it easier for Will. And we've talked about some sort of a checklist and stuff like that. I took the liberty of, I went online and I found this here, you can have this one. I found, look, I don't have copies for you guys, I'll send them to you. But the town of Charlotte, they have on their website a very nice, I'm gonna hold it up. Although if you're on your computers, you can look town of Charlotte DRB.
Okay.
And they have like a really nice little chart that shows how you get a zoning permit. And then on the back page, they have a step-by-step development review board process. And I'm not necessarily saying that we copy this or anything like that, but I think that considering having something like this to help the applicant and Will get through stuff would be helpful. So that's all I have on that. So now let's
yeah, this is great.
go back, and you may have seen, Will, you may have seen stuff like this from other towns.
Yeah, but not in a flow chart. I think that's helpful.
Yeah, I think this is really well done.
Yeah.
Really well
It tells
done.
you, gives you arrows to know
Yeah.
what you're supposed to do.
And on the back is just basically, you know, the submission process and the reviews that would, you know, you might fall
Details
under.
for the front.
and
With
then
links to
with
all
all
of the
these links,
documents, you know,
exactly.
you need this, you need that, so.
Links to the zoning regular, I think it's really good. Whoever
Okay.
Did this, took time and did a good job.
So, I'm gonna start actually again on page 1, because many of you were not here the last time, and I would like to, and Will's made a couple little changes. This is, what Will sent out on, February 25th, okay? And it says at the top, Will's bylaw quick fixes. And then underneath it, it says entire document and section 200 prohibited uses. So I'm gonna just jump in at the first question that I have, but if somebody has a question or a thought before me, please say so. The first one I had was section 440, which is called sewage requirements. It doesn't seem to be a 440 in our zoning regulations.
Yeah, I meant to change that. I thought I had changed that. I think it's 430 or 410.
But are these just sewage requirements for the flood zone, or are they for every place?
No, that's for everywhere.
So we want to take it out of the flood then and make it for everything,
Maybe it
right?
was 540.
Okay, so just check that reference. Okay. Does anybody have anything else on the first page, page 1, that ends with section 440?
No.
Okay, let's move on to section 501. Any questions or concerns about 501? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to 502. And a lot of what's in 501 and 502, it's my understanding, Will, that's like state law.
Yes.
Some of that is
Yep.
required by state.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't mentioned in the statute, we would never be talking about accessing a house by public waters. I don't think.
So now we move into section 503.
Yeah, no,
Here.
I
Oh.
have. So.
Okay,
Can I ask one question? We had talked about maybe a statement somewhere in here, something like notwithstanding if state or federal law supersedes the subject matter, like sort of a general
Okay.
statement, because there's been areas where, to your point, the state has something to say and they would supersede anything we would say.
okay.
I thought we kind of talked about maybe putting that somewhere.
It may be in the,
We'll check it out, okay?
Okay,
I hear
I
what
thought we
you're saying.
didn't have one. I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering.
A lot of times what the state law says is you have to do it like this unless you decide to do it otherwise.
Oh, okay.
So
and then sometimes it
doesn't say that.
sometimes it says, no matter what you say, you have to do it our way. So
Right.
Right.
So,
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
I guess we talked about 502. So didn't we say it was the select board and the DRB, or the select board or the DRB? I don't know. I have this note here.
the select board has to approve access by a class 4 road. That's the only time they would be involved.
and does the DRB also have
we
to,
then-
if it's frontage
yeah.
on a class 4, do we have to do?
Yeah,
it too?
any unconventional access.
So it's and.
Yes.
Okay. What I just said, I don't know why.
And when it's a warned public hearing, I'm assuming that is going to come under that second group of warned public hearings, the one that's 7 days. It's 705.2 parentheses 2.
I can check. It
Yeah.
says, the statute says everything else other than
Right, so.
conditional use hearing, so I think so.
So we have to do that if we do have to do this?
We don't have to do that. It's just a good idea because when someone is accessing a house off a private road, there has to be some sort of maintenance agreement, or else you end up suing each other.
But why if the select board has to do it, I'm just asking, if the select board has to do it, why do we care?
The select board only has to do it in very rare cases.
Well, this is only on a class 4 road.
Right, that's the only time the select board would be involved. I only know of one case in Weston.
Okay, but so, wait a minute. So, but I thought that the DRB referred to the class 4 road.
No, it refers to everything, and just the select board is on the class 4 road.
Oh,
So I guess
But they
we're,
have to prove any access off a road for a driveway.
right.
Well, they don't have to offer private roads.
Well, 1, 2, and 3, is for the zoning, the DRB, and then I guess 4, class 4 is the select board and the DRB. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's,
Okay, that just, well,
Maybe
when it
just-
ever gets drafted, it'll get
yeah,
drafted.
get
correctly,
clarified
yeah.
specifically as to frontage, something like that, so just carves it
And,
out specifically.
On a class 4 road, the select board would have to approve access off the road, but they would also have to approve use of the class 4 road.
Okay. Do we need to say that, or that's all
That's in
just
there.
their stuff? That's,
I'll see if it can be made clearer
okay.
by doing that.
Yeah, because the title says required frontage on or access to public roads or public waters. So the select board has to approve any access, any driveway, any access off a road into a property. So it's not just for class 4 roads, it's this, nobody can build a house until they've gotten that approval from the select board for citing the driveway and having that approved by the select board to have that access.
So is a,
It may have to be a chart.
I know, is
For
a,
us only.
is a class 4, the title is required frontage on or access to public roads or public waters.
Yeah.
So is, Annie, as a section.
So there is another section on access permits.
Right, this is really about frontage.
Okay, frontage or,
But it says
Or
access.
access,
It does
okay.
say
so it
access.
doesn't limited in the title, that's where I
So-
got confused.
So I have a question for you, Annie. Is a class 4 road a public road, or is it different than a public road?
It's a public road,
It's a
but it's not
public road
maintained.
that's not maintained.
Okay,
exactly.
so this
And
is
it hasn't been
required
given
frontage
up.
on or access to. So really, actually, the lead in, well, whatever, it can be drafted to cover everything.
There's 2 accesses. There's highway access and there's, that has to be made clear.
Right, and there's also both, this is dealing with both frontage and access, or is it really just that the frontage is providing the access? No, it's frontage and access.
Why
Yes.
can't we just say in that no land development may be permitted which does not have adequate means of access and or select board approval? And then bullet these things that further qualify that, and it includes class 4.
Because on a private road, the select board wouldn't be involved.
Yeah, it's just the class 4, the other ones are.
They would be involved. Yeah, they wouldn't be involved at all on a private road.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that when we
It's a
get,
little confused, it's a little,
it just needs,
So what's
Better
the
drafting.
difference? And then we can move on, but what's the difference
Okay.
between 1, 2, or 3 and 4?
class 1, 2, there's class 1 roads, 2 roads, and 3 roads.
But they're all public?
Yes.
Okay, that's what. I
And
just
class
wanna
4
know.
is public too.
And they're public too, but just not maintained, okay.
okay.
And anyway, so. All right, I think that what it's saying is that you need to have access, and you can either have access by frontage or a permanent easement. Or,
Approval
Or
from
a-
the select board.
well,
And this,
Because
there's a
this
class
doesn't say,
4
see, the
and
first
zone.
thing is frontage on public
Right.
road, class 1, 2, 3. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what the select board has to approve anyway.
mhm.
I mean, that's not a private road, that's a public
Well-
road, so that's been combined in here, so it's not exclusively private roads in that.
But wait a minute, does the select board have? I think we just, because this is different than a driveway, the driveway permit.
She's talking about the driveway permit.
Yeah,
And I think we can combine it. I think with a little work, we can
yeah,
combine
it's
it.
just
So,
awkward,
yes.
just driving. Okay, so,
Yeah, work it.
now we're moving on to, unless somebody else has anything more on that required frontage. Okay. I have a question about home occupation, and my question is, it seems to be limited the way drafted, and maybe this is the way it needs to be, but it seems to be limited to a minor portion of the dwelling, and I'm sort of interpreting dwelling meaning house. So does that mean it couldn't be in a garage, or? um,
It could say it or an accessory building.
Dwelling or accessory building, yeah, I think that.
And do we define minor? in the-
No, I think we need to
we
define minor.
Define minor in our,
So percentage.
yeah, we don't have a
Or-
minor definition.
Because how do they know that they're using a minor portion without a sort of, I know you put something over here that some towns have like less than 50%, but it's often limited to no more than 25%. Do we can propose something, do we care if it's 25%, 50%, 30%?
How do you police it?
I mean, I
No,
think
you
it's
don't.
just individual.
You
And I
can't
don't
go
know
in.
why.
Well, when they apply for a permit, you can say,
I know,
show me the square footage of
Yeah, I
your.
mean, each
But they-
business would be different.
But they don't have
too.
to apply for a permit for a home
That's
occupation.
true.
And then, so how would you know what they're doing? I mean, you can't go in.
Then why do we need minor portion? Why can't it just be a portion? And I guess,
Well, it's just, it's
Dwelling,
subjective, right? Undue adverse effect on the character of the residential area. I mean, usually it has to do with if it's affecting traffic or affecting,
Well, what's funny
the
about
neighbors or
number one and
the
number two,
traffic.
or one and B, this is basically self-policed because right, I mean,
Yes. But.
Especially here.
there
are no police people here.
but it always has been because home occupations are encouraged in small towns because so it's always been a desirable thing to make it easy without undue effect on the neighbor to have a home occupation.
So maybe what we want to say something like, I don't know, again, this goes to wording, but what we're talking about is, a person is allowed to use a portion, whether we have minor portion or portion.
Yeah, I
But
think
they're
minor it leaves, then there's another.
So they're
hoop to jump
allowed to
over
have
that
a
maybe we
portion
don't
of
wanna-
their dwelling
Portion
or
of the dwelling, yeah.
or
Yeah,
their
portion.
AMD, their whatever that thing is. Is that what it is?
It would just be an accessory building.
Accessory building, okay,
Mhm.
accessory building for an occupation which is customary and that does not have an undue adverse effect on the character of the residential area in which the dwelling is located, provided that the following conditions are met. And it can't be, so there's a couple of other conditions.
By one or more residents in the dwelling, yeah.
Yeah, and so what Will is proposing, because right now, we don't allow for anybody other than one or more residents in the building. And I thought are you sure it says one or more? Because I thought it
Home
said no,
occupation.
I thought it had to be carried on by just the person, no?
It just says which is clear as
The
secondary.
black is what the text says.
Okay,
Doesn't say how many occupants, it just says which is clearly the secondary to the dwelling used for living purposes, that's our only specificity. The undue adverse effect is,
no, it's all right, so we already say
Very
one or more
open-ended.
residents in the dwelling.
and I'm just looking at the.
Okay, so you could have your whole family, that if they live in the dwelling or the auxiliary accessory building, you could have all that, but what Will is proposing is to allow for up to 3 people to also work in that business who don't live in the house. So I think that's not going to be ultimately our decision. That's really going to be the planning
Yeah.
commission's.
Does that mean working in the premises or working for the company? Like,
See, that's
like
what,
the
that was my exact
the
question. The
landscapers,
landscapers have all these employees
and the
that come in and meet,
contractors and.
and they, in the morning to get their assignments, and then they leave.
Mhm.
So that's complicated too,
Yeah,
I agree.
Because it
Dan, I
affects
picked that up, too.
parking and traffic, and that's one of our, our focuses, so, but here. It says does not require any additional off-street parking, I mean, it's just, and again, they're all so different, it's hard to
So,
make an all-encompassing.
so any thoughts up there? What do you guys think about allowing or proposing to allow up to 3 non-residents to work there? And I guess, as Annie said, do they have to work in the business and be on the premises, or do they go out and?
Well, what do other towns do? What's sort of the standard?
Langrove allows 3 employees. I think Londonderry does.
But again, is that in the building or,
I would say if you're an employee, you're an employee no
Yeah,
matter where
I
you're
think
working.
it's probably talking about people that are actually physically in the building. I mean, the
That's
transit
what I think.
coming in
Oh,
and
I
out.
thought the other.
I thought
Because
the
Did
other.
you?
I thought the other, because like, let's assume you have a business and you're making widgets in your
Right.
garage. You don't expect that those 3 non-residents might like go out to the hardware store and get something?
yeah, but they're there. the
Yeah,
majority of
they
the time.
park
Well,
there.
it should certainly
They
cover
park
lawn mowing
there.
businesses, because that's the most
I think
likely.
that the zoning regulations were overall supposed to, really focus on the effect of these things in the community. So it's parking, it's
Yeah.
noise, it's things. So I think if there are people coming and going constantly, that's definitely a problem. But there are 3 people who are on the
Working,
property.
well, why can't we just add, and not more than 3 non-resident employees working on the premises?
Because I think that's the opposite of
You
what we're
think it's
looking for.
he thinks it's the opposite.
I mean,
I think we're looking to regulate
People that are coming and going.
mowing businesses.
Why?
But this
I mean,
wouldn't-
that-
but this
that
wouldn't-
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't
It
necessarily.
doesn't make any
agree
sense,
with
because
that
that's a
either.
primary business for local people. I mean, and we start saying, well, you can't have more than 3 employees. Well,
Without a permit. And then if you have more than 3 employees, you have to do a site plan and a permit.
Yeah, and if you have it in your home, if you have a business somewhere else.
Yeah, it's different, like.
so I'm still a little confused. Are we proposing that well, let's use the landscaping business, because that's purely what we're
Mhm.
really talking about here. So are we proposing that somebody can have a landscaping business that they, their people in their house can work in, and then 3 non-residents can come there and pick up?
No, what Annie's suggesting is you can have any number of employees who don't work on the property.
Oh, you wanted more than 3, Annie?
well, that's what I mean.
She's
I
saying
thought
only
we said
people
we
who
don't want
stay
people
on the property count.
So if you count, it's just 3
that are
people
in
who
that
are.
building as
used-
employees
right.
employed in that building. But people working outside that happen to be, because, often, like, let's take a Will Perkins. He has his office there. His wife does his bookkeeping, but he has people working for him that are outside. But essentially, the heart of the business is an office that's right there on,
Okay.
and everything else is away.
Okay, but the question
I-
is, we're not
I do
saying
have,
that,
I finally have a comment on it too.
okay, go ahead, Jeff, I'm sorry.
I guess I'm picturing if this property is next door to me, and I expected it to be a house with occasional visitors, and if it suddenly was 10 vehicles showing up every morning to get assignments for where they're going to do landscaping or cutting or logging or whatever, I'd feel like that house is turned into a commercial property.
Mhm.
And if they park all
And I
their
think
vehicles.
that's where I'd be uneasy with that unlimited unlimited. I
Mhm.
assume that was kind of the intent of other towns, is to cap it, say, okay, this is just a few folks. This is not, 10 cars showing up every morning, pickup trucks with no mufflers, going in and out. And I think as a next door neighbor in a residential community, I would not be excited about that.
Yeah, so
And I would think that would need to be more of a permit activity.
So I was thinking, why not add a C rather than just a B? We can skip trying to figure out the number of people that it's okay, and then have a more explicit item C that says, first you say is carried on by 1 or more residents, and maybe we say there's 3 non-residents, and there's no significant increase in traffic, parking, noise, like
Noise.
sort of capture it that way rather than get hung up on the number of people that can be there.
So, Susan,
Yeah.
two things in response to that. One is, if you look in the actual zoning regulations,
Okay.
there is like an A, B,
Already, yeah.
C, D, E, F, G, H.
Okay.
That's somewhat similar to what you said, okay? The one thing we have to remember is, and why I don't have a problem with limiting it to 3, because it used to be only the family. So now we're actually being more generous and saying it's the family plus up to 3. But remember, we're not saying you can't do the landscaping business.
Right.
We're just saying you're a home business then, and you need to come in and get a permit.
That's a good point.
So.
Except
and
it
then
says
that-
you don't need a permit if you,
Well, I'd like to be able to be more specific. If you
Okay.
have to go to 503.2, which is what a home business is.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so too.
And so but I also do think that 503.1 could be like a little bit more, if, as long as you're doing this, you don't need a permit. But if you're doing more than this, then you are a home business and you have to go to section.
yeah, that makes sense.
And that
503.
includes, yeah. And that includes parking their tractors and everything else.
It has it here.
Yeah, well, it says you have to go through all the things in home business, which maybe we need to do at some point. So maybe.
Yeah, it does talk about parking, and I don't know if it talks about noise, but that's probably.
So we probably need to look at the, I mean,
Not take up more than a minor portion, though,
you
now
know,
it's back to
this
minor. again.
is the home, the question about home occupations and home businesses is a really hot button, and I think it's hot from both points of view. I mean, I agree with Jeff. I'm not sure that I'd want a giant landscaping and excavating business popping
Next or no.
next to me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And remember, the concept of home occupation always was, something that was carried on in the home. I mean, and we're sort of even expanding it a little bit by saying it can be in an accessory building, but it was really more the things like, oh, you're a doctor that is doing business out of your home, or you have a hairdressing business, or
You own a gallery in your
Yeah,
house or a
right.
studio.
well, I actually had a little consulting business in my house,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's that. But I think maybe we need to make it clear that if you comply with 503.1, you're okay, but if you don't, you need to register and file it and get a permit for a home business.
Okay, so
And I
should
do-
we focus on clarifying how to determine if you meet 503.1?
So it's 503.2.
So 503.1 is, well, the first one is carried on a minor portion of the
Right.
dwelling unit, or we're adding accessory building.
So do
Of
we
the
think
rec.
do we think that's clear enough, or do we literally need to say minor portion is, and I'm making this up, 30% or
Oh,
whatever?
I think we said we would take out the word minor.
Oh, okay, so now it's just a portion, so, okay.
Option.
Yeah,
That's
but
a couple
I
of
guess,
different sentences.
I guess what, the way it's gonna be, the way it's, instead of not defining minor, the way it's gonna be sort of enforced is by these other things, that it's clearly incidental and I'm in C now, is clearly incidental and secondary to the primary use of the residence. It does not require any additional off-street parking.
Yeah.
Does not change the external character of the dwelling or the character of the neighborhood. Does not have undue adverse effect upon the character of the residential area in which the dwelling is located. Offers for sale only articles
Produced
on the premises, here's a catch, or services produced by the resident. So that would mean it only could be, you wouldn't have a landscaping business that had other people, right? I mean.
Right, because then you'd be in home business, wouldn't you? You'd be in
Well,
home-
I mean, if we're
Right.
changing the number, we
Yeah.
can change that line too.
Yeah, so we just have to, yeah. All right, and offers for sale must be in compliance with the performance standards of section 560 and 574. Those are things like noise and,
Explosions.
yeah. And
Vibration.
does not store finished products in any non-screen outside area or enclosed outside storage structure. So I don't know, do we, I'm just throwing this out. Do we want to even like limit the number of? No, I don't think we do. Never mind. I was gonna say, do we want to limit the number of vehicles? And I said, no, we probably don't want to do that because, you know, I have a bunch of vehicles. I have no business, but I have a ton of vehicles at my house.
I just, one quick question. So home occupation and home business are just very loosely differentiated also.
Well,
That's, you know,
okay, so let me go back.
in the
State-
definition.
State law requires that you have a home occupation. But they don't really set forth what has to be in a home occupation. I think they say that it can be whatever the town wants it to be. They do not require that you have a home business section. But I
Right.
think what a lot of towns have done was that, okay, well, we're gonna have a home occupation that's gonna do this much. And we're gonna regulate this much of it, and if you go beyond that, you're gonna become a home business.
Okay,
And
yeah.
you have to, do you have to get a conditional use permit for a home business?
I think it depends on the district.
So is a home business a conditional use in
So
some of
wouldn't,
the?
like the landscaping business be a home
That would be a
business?
business,
That's
that's
not
right.
an occupation.
No, you're right.
Oh, I
That-
see, it
that
would be the
would
type of
qualify.
business,
Probably,
and that
you know,
would be
goes
where it
over
would
that
fall,
line.
right?
I think so too.
Yeah,
But there really isn't like a
so I think
landscaping business.
that's the differentiating factor is a little bit unclear, but that, like a landscaping business is definitely, the impact
Right.
is a business, so you'd fall under that category, where
I
home
think so, too.
occupation, we're thinking of a lesser impact, but we can't, you know, we
As
can't
somebody
define
once
them.
described it to me, it's almost like if you're conducting a home occupation, your neighbors don't even know you're doing
Right,
it. You
right.
know?
Yeah,
You know, whereas if you're conducting a home business, your neighbors
They
know you're
do.
My
doing
neighbor,
it.
I have two neighbors that are definitely occupying it. right.
Well, and so along those lines, what we ought to do is not make it onerous for them to apply for a home
Right.
business
Get
permit.
it.
And that comes down to doing minor site plan,
Mhm.
enabling minor site plan review would make that a lot easier.
Okay. Is there such a thing as minor site plan review?
Oh, yes, it's in here.
It's different than major site plan.
Yes.
Okay.
That allows me to,
Okay, so you added, oh, good.
those permits I've been seeking,
Last time.
the permits I've been secretly giving for small additions on commercial structures.
Groundhog Day. No, I'm joking. We need to do this. We're all, you know, there are a lot of questions.
Hey,
Okay.
listen. They're not, the
It's
planning
always
commission,
fun.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm coming in so late.
the
No.
planning commission is not going to get to this
Yeah,
for
there,
months.
we have time. We have
Okay,
time.
so where are we?
Yeah,
Let's
Again,
see.
how enforceable.
But I also think one thing that I'm not seeing, and
They
tell
have
me
complaints,
tell me
so
if I'm
you
missing
Yeah,
it, but is
even at that,
noise.
we don't
Noise
have
as an
enforceable.
element
difficult.
of,
There is a
Is there
section
something
of
about
performance
noise?
standards. Go to like
Well, it's- I just
560 or
found that
something.
too,
but noise in terms of a home business, home
Well, you
occupation,
know,
but
but
there's just
they're
general
almost,
noise.
you know,
No, no, no.
Well, there is a guy who wanted to run a sawmill as a home business.
Must be
In
in
Do
compliance.
you have a
London,
river and
Originally, it
a?
was
No,
bought
no.
for-
This is a
Right.
home
Well,
occupant
I
bought
business.
for
Right.
his-
Must be.
Yeah.
in
Okay,
compliance.
all right,
managers
so that's what
with
I.
the
Okay, sorry about this, guys. All right, let's move on
It's just
to,
an
A sawmill.
Yeah, right.
all right.
That's
So
great.
this one is the McKenna.
The next one is section
Oh, yeah.
511.2,
Stonemason.
which has to do with non-conforming
businesses, I mean, I don't know whether
structures.
they're
And it just
permits or
says you can
whatever.
add an accessory building. It doesn't have to be attached.
Okay. But it still needs to meet setback requirements.
Or
There is noise in there and odor, so that's good.
it.
So when you say
you ha-
the addition of accessory structures, it does not have to be in contact with the original structure? So
That's
the
what I'm
intent-
suggesting. It would just have to, the same rules would apply for additions and for accessory structures, is what I'm suggesting.
I think that'd have to be clarified, because when I first read that, I thought the addition of an accessory structure, that accessory structure could be because it wasn't clear that could be just a standalone building.
Right. It could be,
Mhm.
isn't that what we're saying? It could be.
That's what I'm
Oh,
suggesting.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, Jeff. It's really not the addition of an accessory
Mhm.
structure. It's really just or an accessory structure, I guess, right?
The alteration of an
Additions to
accessory
the building or
structure.
structure and or having an accessory structure. I mean,
Well, are we trying
Or is it something like, or adding an accessory structure to the
adding, that's
property,
better. Yeah,
Yeah,
to the property?
yeah.
it's definitely an or, not an and.
Yeah.
Why can't it just say or accessory structure?
I think we're gonna have to go back and see how the whole sentence flows. But
So it has to be. it
Well,
has
I
to
think the whole
have-
thing where we get stuck, why that needs different language, is it says altered additions. And the intent here is that it's not an alteration, it's not an addition that we would all think about, because that's of the original structure.
Right.
So I think we want to be clear that the addition of an accessory structure that's a separate. We don't want to have any confusion on interpretation that accessory
So-
structure has to be attached to the original non-conforming structure.
But wait a minute. Okay,
But then we're
talking about something different because
Yeah.
this is for non-conforming structures.
And
Right.
an accessory structure is by definition not attached.
Yeah.
Right, but wait a minute. This section applies to non-conforming structures.
Right.
So
How is an accessory structure?
yeah, if you
Part of the original it would be
yeah.
an
So
accessory structure that doesn't change maybe the setback
Well-
or whatever, but not this, it's not changing the structure, it's putting in a new building.
Right, I think
Right.
when we got hung up, and Jeff, thank you for pointing this out. I think where we got hung up before was that they wanted to put an accessory structure on the property. And it wasn't an existing non-conforming thing. It was just they wanted to put it on new. So I just think this has to be rewritten to take care of that. This is what we're saying is that I don't even know if this is in the right place.
Well, it's more that you're not changing, if there's a non-conforming structure existing, which means it has non-conforming setbacks, non-conforming other
Mhm.
on the site. The dwelling, if you want to add an accessory structure, it has to conform with the requirements for the site that have been grandfathered in. It's
Yeah.
not the structure, not the structure itself that has a non-conforming regulation, because it's new. It's more the site retains its non-conforming
Right,
privileges if you add something that doesn't
right. What-
do anything to the site.
I think the way
Very
it worked
inarticulate,
before was that we had they wanted to put this structure up. And we thought that the structure had to be attached to their house. And
Well,
what
we were actually looking for a way out for them. So they wanted to leave the shed where it was.
Mhm.
The barn, it's a whole.
We were
story.
trying to see, was there
What are we talking
room?
about here?
The chemi-
Oh, I'm talking about, what's his name? Up on Lawrence Hill Road, the old. He's an electrician. He built a big barn. It's too close to the road. He has no other setback, remember? And so we said, okay, you can do
Oh,
it, but
right.
you don't even need if you just have a connection to the main
Right.
house, because the main house was like right on the road.
Right,
And
yeah,
so, I mean, I don't
Mhm.
think he ever added the connector.
Yeah, he
but-
did last fall.
He did now?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I think we all know that there's just an issue here that needs to be addressed. We just need to figure out
Yeah.
a good way to, I write off.
Only took 10 minutes, I think.
Okay.
I think our intent, just to back up a little bit, what was not clear to us was the deck a part of the structure? That's where we're twisting ourselves into knots, trying to see if they pulled that, that shed and connected it to the deck, would
Yeah.
that give them an ability, to keep the shed?
But also, Jeff, in our laws, we describe a fence of being a structure. And the fence connected to the house, connected to the
Right.
shed,
Right.
is connected with a structure. And that's
It was a
where we
yeah.
got hung up too.
But I
Yes.
think
It wasn't, yeah.
what we're trying to get at here is that if you are adding something to an existing non-conforming structure like their house, it doesn't have to be attached. It could be someplace else, as long as it doesn't increase the degree of
Exactly.
non-conformity.
But it's
Yep.
not nonconformity of the structure, it's nonconformity of the site.
Setbacks and-
And,
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's not, if you're building something, an addition, it has to conform with the existing nonconformity of the plot,
Yeah, well,
of the lot, it's not the structure. Because that's, I think, where you run into problems if you're discussing
Well, it's
an
both. It's-
addition,
it's the
or an
setbacks,
accessory
basically,
building.
whether it's the structure
Well, like you were
setbacks or-
saying, a lot of
or
the houses
water's setback,
right on the
whatever.
road, and you don't want to
property setbacks,
preclude
yeah.
someone from
all right, that was
being able to
confusing to me.
build right on the road, because in 1870, that house was built right on the road, but you're not adding to the house, but you wouldn't be allowed to build that building because of the setbacks as currently mandated, but it's not changing the nonconformity of the structure. It's right, so.
But on the McKenna's, I thought that the nonconformity was that they put a shed too close to the river. And that was the nonconformity.
That was the.
That was one,
nonconformity.
no, they were not conforming with the side setbacks
Side
either.
lots, because it was
Right,
a
right.
triangle,
It
they
didn't have
had.
anything to do with attaching to the house when.
No, you're right, it didn't, but the way we were trying to
Yeah,
allow
right.
that structure was that we were saying like, okay, if you moved it from where it was and attached it to the house,
Yeah.
it would be
right.
okay.
Yeah,
Is that a non-conforming house?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Wouldn't that be increasing the non-conformity?
Well, no, because it was behind the house, it was.
right. But the
It
house
was
was-
very,
Yeah, the house wasn't on the river. The
There's
house
a house
was.
on the road.
yeah.
You can build a structure next to it, but you can't build it any closer to the road. It has to be within the same non-conforming as the other structure.
but you know what, guys, if we do get our waivers, the waivers are going to allow for setback waiving in certain circumstances, and this would have been a perfect circumstance because all the reasons
Mhm.
that it was this crazy, you weren't,
No, it was
Yeah.
before me.
it was this crazy lot, that the thing had already been built.
Mhm.
It was,
So you were so kind in trying to tell them, I read
Yeah.
your decision and trying to help them. You did not have to do that. You gave them like, do this and then you're okay.
yeah, all right, so
Anyway.
moving on, we're gonna go for 15 more minutes, does that sound agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
We can do that, absolutely.
Okay.
We might get done with the stuff we did last week.
And
Yeah,
I
this is gonna
promise-
take years.
I promise
years.
next time we will.
No, don't discourage him.
Do
Do not discourage him.
Some of the stuff I've been through.
Do not discourage
I
him.
promise you that next time I will note where we are and we won't go
But we
back.
needed to do this
I
though, because we're
would
still
think you would
utterly
go through it all
confused.
and then go back like we did again today.
We're gonna
Once you
have to
went
keep
through
going
everything.
back.
Otherwise, you're just gonna.
Yeah.
No, but
No.
I will,
No,
we're
we're good.
Okay.
gonna
that's
draw a
what I'm
line
saying.
next
Good.
time. We're gonna draw a line. Okay,
Okay.
but we are on, this is saying what you need, site plan review for. And it's for well, it's for everything but 1 and 2 family houses.
Mhm.
Accessory, is it accessory uses or accessory I guess it's accessory uses, already says that, accessory uses there too. All right, temporary structures.
You're adding the-
Signs, the red is new,
Yeah.
signs, agricultural uses, and oh my gosh, we have that minor changes to it. Yeah, I
Mhm.
didn't know what this meant.
There's
and
a
minor
section-
Changes to existing family homes. and
That's
commercial
defined.
uses.
It
in-
is,
In another later part.
okay, because we need to
Okay.
define that, because minor is.
It
gonna
is
be
defined.
A thing.
There's a whole paragraph defining that.
Okay,
So you
Perfect.
do the site plan review on new homes.
No, it would be only for minor.
no.
Oh, I know, I do for homes, yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
And
Well, excepting that there really isn't, there isn't a site plan required that's in the same detail that is required for
Right.
these other things.
so I approve,
Does not make sense.
I approve houses.
I'm
Yes.
confused.
It's
Yeah,
not,
you
it's
approve
not
it.
called a site plan for a house,
Well, okay.
unless it's a 3-family house.
Yeah.
No, but it
But
really
it's
doesn't,
not.
I mean, but
I
but
don't
I
You
think,
can't build a house right on the street, though.
Well, but
Then
I-
Don't you need a
you're
site
reviewing.
plan review for a 1 and 2 family house?
No, that's
You don't.
accept, it says accept.
You don't.
Right.
but
Right.
But I think-
You don't need a hearing.
Accept.
Right,
You
you
don't need a
need
hearing,
a
but that's what
zone,
I'm
you
saying.
need to
You're
come to
reviewing
you,
where they're
you're
gonna put this
reviewing the
house.
application.
In the Vermont terminology, that's not a site plan review.
Okay, that's what,
Okay.
that's what is it
It's a
called?
zoning permit.
and
It's a zone, so you
and
still
so-
have to get a zoning
Well, you-
permit, you don't have to
okay.
come before
It's a
us
zoning- it's
unless you need to because one of the other.
So site plan review is a public forum.
right,
Unless there's a paragraph of exceptions.
but then this is something
These are the exceptions.
No,
like
no.
this is gonna help,
Where
right?
were you in
Because it says
architecture?
except.
Where were you in architecture?
New York City.
Okay.
It's in the-
So where does accessory dwelling unit fit? Is it an exception? Because that's not the same as accessory uses?
It's an accessory use, I would say.
Oh, okay.
I knew you guys would know. something.
Okay, minor site plan review.
Okay.
To qualify for a minor site plan review, an application must not involve commencement of a new conditional use, construction or major renovation of a principal building, any increase in the number of dwellings on the property beyond 2, any increase of half acre or more of impervious surface, any development of floodway, excavation in a flood zone, or substantial improvement to an existing structure in a flood zone.
But okay, here's what's confusing to me. When I read section 513(1), it says that site development plan review, whatever, however that's defined, is required for all uses except 1 and 2 family dwellings, the blah, 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 blah. And then it says, but don't we want to say right there, refer to,
Sure,
I don't know.
it doesn't have a number yet.
Okay,
Refer to what?
Minor site plan
well,
section.
excepting that, I want to go follow up on Dan's thought that there needs to be a site plan to get a zoning permit. You know, for a
It's
house.
just saying
Site
there-
plan
there is, but
review.
it's not called that.
It's not called that. So site plan review is what we do. He looks
I
at
mean,
zoning
to me, it
permits.
is a site plan
which
review
will-
if he's looking to see if it
Everyone
meets
has to
setbacks
submit
and
a
everything,
site
right?
plan. It's wording, right? Is that what you?
Right, and
yeah.
it's what's in statute and you can't.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
and it's,
just,
but it's actually not defined in here.
So it needs to be
It's the
defined because
criteria,
I
site plan.
would never look
Yeah.
at this and think, I would think, oh, I can just build a house and I don't need a permit.
Site development review
Because
plan.
review. I
So
think we
all
need a
other,
definition of
all
when you need a
other-
zoning permit.
all other administrative permit.
And it could be addressed also in something like this, right?
Right.
This would be really helpful if we had the whole, even, this is a site plan review, this is a zoning permit.
I mean, like a glossary.
Yeah, in colors. So,
get the
yeah,
template for it.
Minimum building set required.
because it's,
All right, now we come to my favorite one, which is number 3 on here, 513(3), which is requiring that the minimum building setback requirement from all permanent watercourses, however they're defined,
Mhm,
shall be 50 feet.
mhm.
So I guess I just, and the reason that I'm confused about this is because we have flood hazard regulations, and I know this is supposedly is different, but why, if somebody complies with the flood hazard regulations, and the flood hazard regulations let them be 35 feet, why would we want to then have a restriction of 50 feet?
Because of erosion and
Yeah, I think we might wanna regulate it for the town also, not just for, you know.
I don't know.
I asked floodplains about
You, I
that.
think, corrected this, I mean, you changed this, I'm sorry,
What
from
did
what
they
it
say?
was before.
They said they're two different things. The
They
50
are.
foot setback has nothing to do with,
Oh, wait a minute, our
Yeah,
hydrologist.
Jeff, tell us.
Well, I mean, the floodplain is a very specific, it's about floods. This is just about a water course. I assume that could be a pond, it could be a little stream that goes through your property that's not regulated by the state or the federal government.
So is that like a
There's
pond?
probably far more bodies of water in Weston that are not regulated by the state or federal government in the floodplain regs. You know, there are plenty of little streams that go through properties.
a
Oh.
pond that's not in a wetland.
So
There's no
Jeff,
setback.
so Jeff, I have a question on this. So are you saying that, see, I think of a permanent course as being like the West River.
The river, yeah.
It's anything
and-
that's on the state map.
And so you're saying that a pond is a permanent water course?
Is it defined in the regs?
No.
It wouldn't be defined as a water course, it'd be defined as a wetland, or if it's a, you can build a pond that's not in a wetland, but most ponds are in wetlands.
But I mean, I have a pond and I don't think my house is 50 feet from the pond. And it's been there for a long time.
Is it-
grandfather?
Is it part of, I
Mine
can
is-
check if it's part of a wetland or not.
Mine is definitely
It is
wet
re-
land.
But that
and I
doesn't
have a
say
pond and
anything
it's
about-
close to my house.
Well, there's another section on, I mean, I don't know, there is another section on wetlands, that needs work too, but I didn't.
I guess I don't understand what we're trying to protect here. I mean, I maybe,
Well, I think like Jeff said, it's not just flood issue, it's an erosion issue, and Will said it too, so we're not just worried about building, so your house is gonna get flooded, you're worrying about building, so there's erosion that's affecting other the neighbors and the
Yeah.
town. I think that's.
Right, I mean, that's the key point. There are plenty of water courses that are not regulated as a flood hazard. They're not in the state's program, they're not in the federal program.
It's gonna be hard for us to do this though.
so
But I think we'll just I think you were telling us quite a while ago, because this came up in some case, and I don't know if it was McKenna or whoever it was, that wouldn't have been there, but.
Well, it was McKenna, but it was also.
But I
the
think,
folks.
Will, I think you said that 100 was unusual. You'd seen more like 50 in other adjacent
50 is
towns.
normal, yeah.
Yeah, so you were pulling that from adjacent towns in that we were overdoing it at 100.
So if I were reading this and I were a layperson and I read requirement, it has to be the minimum setback from all permanent water courses. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I
So
think
we
the
need a definition of permanent water course.
is the.
Yeah, it
issue.
should be defined.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
I think
that
that's
helps me.
the solution, yeah.
And also, I mean, I can send them a picture too. The little blue
'Cause
line.
the other thing, Will, for your, which you may be very familiar with, yeah, there are plenty of water courses in New England that are intermittent, which means they dry out in the summertime. So I don't know if the intent of this is permanent, is that it flows year round.
That's an issue.
Or if it is a seasonal water course.
You can get the wetland people to come out and make that determination.
Well, I know that, but I don't know if is the intent in this is the word permanent. Is that imply, as far as a future definition, is that implying that it is something that is, say, a pond that is always has water in it, or if it's a stream that it always is flowing? That's just what we need to be, we need to tighten up on.
It maybe
Because
should be a
Was
regulated
it
water
approved in
course.
water course? Apparently it is, although now it has, it's
Water
frozen.
courses is,
Yeah, that's, okay.
So the next one is 510, which is this agricultural, it's protection that actually is in state law, right?
Yes, I switched it to make it match state law.
Okay,
Why
and
am I
so
not
can we
seeing
just
that?
call that thing agricultural structure instead of just agriculture? That section?
Yep.
Okay.
Why does mine say 520.22?
gets the wrong number.
That-
You have an older one.
It's an old one, see, I
I
had
have
the,
too
I had the
many,
older,
I saved everything.
I
which
had
is
the
a
older one here and then I
problem.
just.
So what's the number?
I
I'm
printed
sorry.
this one.
510.2.
510.2, thank you.
All right. So the next one, and we're gonna, the next one is 522, and it's location of driveways. So all driveways to town roads shall be approved by the select board. There's also, if you look at your zoning regulations, this is 522 and 1, and there's also a 522, 2, 3, and 4.
Mhm.
So,
So why are we,
At least 100
I guess we have to
intersection.
have it in the zoning, even though this, it's select board approval? Okay, just got it.
I guess why do we need all those if it just has to be approved?
Yeah,
from-
that's my question.
By the select
Because
board,
we're not gonna take it
that's
under
what it states.
consideration, they are.
and it says basically to eliminate drainage under the road, provide safe entrance and exit. Well, it's not safe entrance or exit if it's near a crossway, or it's not safe if you can't, these just qualify.
so
as
I do have a
safety.
question on that, Annie, because if you look at 522.2,
Okay,
that's where it says that all driveways are to be located at least 100 feet from a town road intersection.
Yeah.
Now, is that something, I'm asking, is that something that the select board would consider or,
yep.
so, but if it weren't in our
If it
zoning?
weren't in the zoning, would they, okay, I
Except
Yeah, I
for
think
one
it
or
has
two
to have
family
it
residential
qualified,
units.
but-
Why,
Well, that's,
Yeah.
yeah,
why are
is
they
that exempt?
exempt?
I think just because it's expected they won't have that much traffic.
Yeah, I guess.
But, so if the select board reviews this, they have to comply with this,
They don't have to follow.
they don't have
The
to
zoning,
follow
no.
this.
So I would just take it out there.
Then why are we putting
That's
it
what I
in?
think.
Yeah, that's
so,
as the state.
so take out, I'm suggesting all,
just.
that number one
number
just would say
one.
all driveway entrances shall be approved by the select board, period.
Mhm.
We don't care what they're approving it for.
Yeah, and take out
And
number
take out
one.
number 2,
And
Is there a
just
mention of state for state roads?
Yeah.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
number
okay.
4.
and access
Which should
permits must be
stay,
obtained
okay.
from the Weston Select.
So
Board
make
for new
that number
access.
2.
That, we don't need that.
So did, we
That's what
don't
I
need
said.
this, that they need to get a permit,
And
By the-
access,
VAT permit?
well,
They
maybe,
do for
do you
state
think we
roads.
should combine location of driveways and access into one? Like that one from the front?
Well, access also includes private roads and.
Well, that's what I'm saying, combine these two into one. So one of the
Okay.
things I find, and we're gonna stop here. One of the things I find is that when even as a zoning person that's has looked at these zoning regulations forever, when I look at all the stuff in section 511, I zone out. I just can't, I'm going like, oh, you have to do this. I was wondering if there's a way to make it, I don't know, easier to get through. It's really hard.
I look at all the.
Yeah, exactly,
With the
this
houses and
does.
my driveway and this and that and everything.
Well, we
Yeah.
need to do this, we need to regulate, but we need to maybe as we're doing.
Well, I'm
make
not
it
saying we should get
clearer.
rid of them. It's just like.
Yeah, well, that's why, I think that's what we're
Would
doing.
you,
That's what-
would you like some homework assignment? You want me to take it away and see if I can simplify it?
Oh,
Oh.
yes.
I don't mind
Sure.
doing that. That's what I do for a
Are
living. I
you-
wordsmith
are you-
things.
Are you talking
Right.
about section, the 500s?
Yeah, you said 511, right? 511-1?
Access and
Okay.
the driveways.
Oh, I thought we were just talking about.
Oh,
Make sure
well,
I'm
I
right.
thought, no, I thought that section.
522.
Where is it? No, section 502 and 522 seem to be somewhat repetitive.
Okay, 502 and 522. Let me take a,
And I combined them in Landgrove and Peru, so it is
Oh.
doable.
Oh,
Okay,
do you have that?
yeah, if you,
Oh,
if the work has been done already.
then send that around.
all right, since we have 5 more minutes, I'm gonna just move, I have a quick question on temporary uses and structures, which isn't on Will's list, but it's the next one, it's 523. And what's kind of weird is if you look up the definition of temporary structure, I think, it says it's a temporary structure can be there for a year. And that's a temporary structure. But this seems to say you have to get a permit. So I'm not really quite sure how the two fit together.
You have to get a permit for a temporary structure.
Okay, oh, so a temporary structure, the definition of it is it can't be there for more than a year and you need a permit for it in any event.
Yes.
Okay, now I get that. Okay.
Well, how about, an example, because a horse shed that's on runners is temporary because it can be moved.
Uh,
Because that's
It's,
the whole
it's,
purpose of
it's,
it.
it's
not a
temporary if
permanent
you move it.
structure.
It's not temporary if it's on runners.
Well, that,
But it's
It's
not
always
gonna
been
stay there.
the rule of that as long as that you can move it, as it's movable from place to place, it's this temporary structure, but if it's
I've never used that
grounded,
definition. I've used if you
then-
don't move it, it's permanent because people buy trailers and
Mhm.
shipping boxes and say they're temporary, but they have them there for 25 years.
I have a
Well,
blue
what's
pod
that?
on
I
the
don't,
property.
maybe did that go under
And if it's there for
agricultural
a
then,
year,
an
I'm going to
agricultural
shoot
use?
myself.
A horse barn would.
So I have one
Maybe
question
that's
for
it.
the board right now. It's a question in the next 3 minutes. When I read that first sentence in section 523, which says permits for temporary structures may be issued for a period not exceeding 1 year. To me, that sort of it doesn't say to me that I actually need a permit. It just sort of says they may be issued. I don't know. I like something more definitive, like,
Are they-
temporary structures
are they
that are going to
defined?
exist for more than a year. No, even for less than a year, need a permit. All temporary structures need a permit.
I think the only advantage to getting a temporary structure permit is if it's commercial. A residential person should just get a zoning permit. But if it's commercial and you want a temporary
'Cause there's
structure,
a thing about
then
public.
you don't
open
need
to
a
the
hearing to
public
have a.
after.
That would be like a tent
A
that
tent,
the
well, that's what
theater
this next,
company puts up.
right, but this
Right.
is limiting it to 12 days per calendar year. If you're an extension of retail space is the only,
I find
It-
this
this
very
is-
confusing.
yeah.
Okay, so do the teepees around the corner from me need, do they need one of these?
You know what she's talking?
Are they
No,
over
no.
100?
There's 2 teepees.
Are they over 144 square feet? I don't want to
They
tell.
look
the guy.
big. They look big. I don't know.
in town, right? Isn't there a
Yeah, she's
permanent
got a
yurt?
yurt. I don't know how she's.
There's a yurt.
My
in
brain is
town.
too fried to understand, but I don't really understand what section
go down
523
to
says
No,
yet.
and then the next part of it is even more confusing about the retail space, and you can't use it for more than 12
Yeah.
days per calendar year, like.
We're stopping at 523.
That's a
Okay.
random,
And actually, Susan, if you want something to do, you can look and see if any other towns have
Oh, and
something
there
on
was
temporary uses
signs.
and structures.
Okay.
Hey,
So you
Debbie,
want me to do
Debbie,
that?
Yes, Jeff?
was your issue the may in there, which just sounds like it's up to the whims of somebody to issue it or not? you know, other ones, there's like
Yeah,
shalls
because
and
it's also
stuff.
the
Yeah.
definition of it, I think, is not.
Yeah, when
it's not
I read
defined.
may, it's like, well, okay, maybe they'll feel like it, maybe they won't, but
Right.
You're,
How
you
does
all
the-
assume
how-
that, you all assume that any applicants have ever read anything in the bylaws.
But the
Which is
ZA
not the
needs,
case. Well,
the ZA needs a firm language to back up their actions.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take
Sorry,
that.
what are you,
Yes.
what's?
All right,
That's-
Yeah, this is as well.
it's
They're
six
both on the
15 and
town
I'm gonna
website.
use the chair's
Oh, okay,
prerogative
so yeah.
and
This
adjourn the
is- This
meeting.
is the new. that
Oh,
he
but I
just
wanna ask
sent
everybody
out.
a question.
This is red
The
line.
zoning regs are on. the
Are
town
people
website.
ready
I
to
printed that
continue
out here.
this?
I have them here.
Me too, that's what I.
too.
I
Is
have
confusion
a copy.
next month?
This was
Yes.
from 5
Yes,
years
yes, yes.
of like
Well, you can
talking
vote with
about
your
all
Do you
feet.
know where the TPs are?
No.
Bye.
They're on that road. And you know what he-
Bye. They're very obvious.
What he,
They will?
what he did was he built a new house.
Yes,
too, you
Jeff.
know. This is.
He's leaving.
He built how many houses on top of the?
Are we off the record yet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
we're-
Oh,
Well, no,
so-
But
We're
he
gonna get
applied
some-
for the permit, so he went down and gave him the permit, and you're supposed to wait 15 days. He got there and the house was up already. It's coffee. He's a New Jersey contractor. He operates on New Jersey.